Silver follows suit, oftentimes outpacing percentage-wise gold's gains. But he said something to me this afternoon, in my mind, why silver has been held back.
Your cash is losing value by the day. What are you doing to protect yourself? Andy Schectman is here with an urgent warning. The dollars in your pocket, your bank, and your savings are rapidly turning into worthless paper. Andy Schectman will break down why your cash is becoming trash and how you can take action before it's too late. Is your savings safe? Can you really rely on paper money in this economic climate? It's time to rethink everything you thought you knew. The storm is coming. Are you prepared? Stay tuned, because the financial security of your future could depend on it.
And I think that is really hitting the nail on the head, is that it's like the little boy who cried wolf, and the market doesn't believe it. I think that's what it is. In fact, I think even the bulls don't believe it, that we've witnessed so many pullbacks that are counterintuitive, that we're so far past when this should have all happened. And it's happened so many times. And how many times do I need to hear it? And I think the market just doesn't believe it. And that's what, to me, potentially makes this so very strong. Rick Rule, about in this environment, he would expect to see the majors go first, the ones that you mentioned, the Barracks and the Newmonts, and then the mid-tier majors, and then the juniors, and then the explorations, and of course also maybe my favorite, the royalty stocks. But it's interesting when you put it in that light, and I think the same thing is true about silver. People just don't believe that it will go. And I think that's fair. That's a fair point. We've watched it get hammered for so many years, and so many times when the fundamentals would say that it shouldn't. And yet gold, here we are, showing or leading the way. Now, that's also typically the way things go. Gold typically leads the way in these moves, and silver follows suit, oftentimes outpacing percentage-wise gold's gains. But he said something to me this afternoon that made me say, well, why don't I show the PowerPoint that I did at Rick's show, at least a few of the slides, to explain, in my mind, why silver has been held back. I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind. All right. I hope we're sharing our screen here. Yes. I think we are. All right.
Got it.
So we're going to skip past this one. We don't need any of that nonsense. But here's a smoking gun as far as I'm concerned, right? So let's start here. Now this, you can Google all of this. This is, and this is courtesy of the Pickaxe. And John Little is a hell of a researcher. I will give him that. And he's brought a lot of things to the market that us silverbug should be thankful for. And this is one of them. There's a subcommittee in October of 1942, a subcommittee hearing on banking and currency. You can see it, S.2768. And it was a bill to authorize, for war purposes, the silver held or owned by the United States. And as you can see here, just by reading the first couple of paragraphs here, the present consumption of silver for war purposes is at a rate of about 100 million ounces a year and is growing rapidly, according to the War Production Board. It is only a matter of months before war demands will have increased sufficiently to require at least 200 million ounces a year. All right, so that's 1942, right? And if we think about where we are now, I gave a speech where at Jay Martin's conference in Vancouver 2 years ago, where I said to the audience, there's 500 ounces in the tip of a Tomahawk cruise missile. Excuse me. And the man came up to me after the speech and he said, you know, I'm a consultant for the DOD. I worked on the team that developed the Tomahawk, and I know that there's silver in it. I don't know how much. I'll let you know. And I never heard from him again. But I went back there this year in January, gave a different speech, and there he was. And he was standing there with a handful of photos. He said, "You remember me?" I said, "I do." And he showed me a bunch of photos. He said, "Don't worry, this is all declassified." He said, "But you're right. There is between 13 and 14 kilograms of silver in the tip of a Tomahawk." And he showed me all sorts of pictures and how they had difficulty getting it to launch vertically because it was designed to come out of torpedo tubes of a submarine and all sorts of stuff. It was an interesting conversation. But what I took away from it is that in these high-tech weapons, silver is used, and copiously at that. So in any case, keep that in mind as we move forward. Here in 1942, we're told 200 million ounces would be needed for military equipment, and the level of sophistication is exponentially higher now. So here are the supply-demand numbers that come out of the Silver Institute. And if we look at the demand section here, first of all, we see once again there's a 260 million ounce shortfall projected between supply and demand. But look at the demand totals. We have industrial demand, which is
solar
9%, electrical and electronics, of which photovoltaics 20%, brazing, alloys, and solders 3%. And by the way, I have a client who is a mechanic for United Airlines. He said the amount of silver solder inside these airplanes is extraordinary. Anyways, other industrial 3% or 9%, photography -3%, jewelry 4%, silverware 7%, net investment. So nowhere in here do we see military applications at all, 0. And yet we're told there is a 200+ million ounce shortfall. We are told that we are running out of silver in above ground. And when we look at the supply demand numbers, nowhere on there does it mention military. And in 1942, we know they were using up to 200 million ounces a year. And as a result, take a look at this, and maybe this chart will help underscore what's happening here. So this is the COMEX market. And if you can see, the red line represents the 4 largest commercial banks short. And the green line represents the 8 largest, so the 4 plus the other 4. So there are 8 banks in essence right now, 8 banks, all Western banks. And we can say they would be Standard Chartered, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, and I don't know who else. But the point of it is that there are 8 commercial banks right now that have the largest concentrated short position of any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX market. The fact that you have 8 banks shorting this price tells you there's something important about silver. Now, think about what we were just saying. Think of all of the weapons that are being created, the high-tech weapons in aerospace and stealth bombers and all of this stuff that the military-industrial complex is involved in. We just voted to give another, I don't know, $150 million or so on top of all the billions we've given the Ukraine, and almost all of it is in weaponry. All of it. They're giving all of this money to the military-industrial complex to make high-tech weaponry, and the only way that they're able to create this stuff and to sell it all around the world is to keep the price of silver down. And what is interesting about that, when you see this and then look at this frame, we can see that the people around the world, like China and India, are using this suppression against us. They understand what we are doing. They understand that we are holding down the price, but they were never motivated, coordinated, sophisticated, wealthy enough, and to stand for delivery. But that's what they are doing. And this is the LBMA, the London Bullion Metals Association, who said it's the second lowest, or nearly the lowest amount of silver they have ever had in their vaults since they started keeping records. You're seeing the same thing on COMEX, massive deliveries and rehypothecation on COMEX of over 1,500%, where 15 people think they own the same contract. If everyone stood for delivery, one may get the silver, the rest get cash settled. It was like Bernie Madoff, had a good deal going until people said, give me my money back. So this is what I wanted to show you and get your opinion, your feeling on it. So the question really to me is, if silver is more or less not even industrial, to me, it's strategic. It's needed in so many things, including military, and they strip it from the supply demand numbers. We have 8 banks shorting it to the degree that no one's ever seen in any commodity ever. And then we see this. We see the vaults being bled dry, and they're being bled dry by the countries who are now smart to our con and are using it against us, kind of like jiu-jitsu, where you use your opponent's leverage against them. This is why silver hasn't gone. And this is what I think when we talk about little by little by little by little, then bang all at once.
The writing's on the wall. Your cash is losing value and the clock is ticking. You've seen the signs. Inflation, reckless spending, a broken financial system. The question now is, how will you protect yourself from the coming storm? There's still time to act, but not much. Diversify, invest wisely, and don't let your savings turn into worthless paper. If you found this video valuable, like, share, and subscribe for more critical updates that could save your financial future. Stay informed, stay ahead.